Ho 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 guys, we are extremely close to Christmas. Oh my goodness, it is like, what is it, 5 days to go? Oh my god, the stress, the excitement, the everything. But in my typical Christmas tradition, I'm going to prepare a glazed ham. This is something that we do every year and it's much anticipated by all of our friends because we normally have a Christmas party here at home. This year we're going to have it at the Bowls Club, so I'm preparing this ham to take there. And Aperol Spritz, that is the drink that gives me inspiration when I make this ham. So definitely have to have it in a glass. I better taste it. It tastes beautiful. So I really recommend you try that when you make your ham. What we're going to do today is a really simple orange marmalade and Dijon glaze. Those are your two main ingredients. I've been making this recipe for probably about I want to say about 8-9 years now, so it's been a long time. I started out making with seeded mustard. I've swapped to Dijon along the way. You can really sort of use the mustard that you like the most. Fresh oranges are always great. I like to add some fresh slices and some fresh orange juice. If you'd like to just use tropical juice, something like just a combination of pineapple, apples, that sort of thing can work well as well, and definitely brown sugar. So just a couple of ingredients, all from my handy Aldi store. I'm going to go into making this glaze and I'll show you how to do it. For the ham, I'm using the Bertocchi. I really recommend and I love Bertocchi. I think, look, I've tried quite a few different hams, including the store-bought Coles variety, the Aldi variety, but you just can't go wrong with Bertocchi. They're family-owned Australian company. The flavor and the quality of the ham is always superb. This particular one is the festival ham that's hickory smoked, and you do get that flavor that comes through. My recommendation, if you're unsure what ham to choose, go to your local deli. Ask them what hams that they're doing in the full Christmas ham size and actually taste the ham at the deli. That's the best way to actually find a ham that you like, rather than buying something. At the end of the day, this is a 4 kilo baby. This is probably one of the smaller sizes out there. In past years, I've done 8 kilo and 9 kilo. You're doing a lot of ham. You want to make sure that you're going to love that ham. Don't buy a ham just for the sake of it. Think about it, buy wisely, and it's going to really be the gift that keeps giving. Let's get on with it, guys. Cheers. First thing you're gonna do is grab a pair of scissors and just cut the vacuum sealed packet so you can actually get in there. Now, be ready for the juices. So if you're vegetarian, look away because this is probably not something that's going to be of interest to you. And I think a lot of meat eaters, look, we are so not hands-on with where our meat comes from, with what the meat looks like, etc. We live in such a sanitized world that this might freak some of you guys out. It can be a little bit slimy. At the end of the day, ham is a preserved good. This has actually been double packaged, as you can see. And look, at the end of the day, that's because it needs to last a long time. Most of these hams have been smoked, brined, that sort of thing. So all this packaging and the juice is important to keep it. So basically you want to go ahead and take the whole thing off. You don't want to take this bottom bit off just yet. Grab all of that out. I'm just going to pop that into the sink. Actually, go ahead and grab that. Ignore what I just said. Now this net, you can either cut it with a pair of scissors or just pull it off like a stocking. Cutting it is usually the easiest and quickest way to go about it. You don't need it. So that can just easily come off. And there you go. So you're just sort of pulling the stocking off. And this is what gives that beautiful imprint into the ham. And a lot of people love to stud the actual ham with cloves, which looks absolutely beautiful. From a practical point of view, personally, I don't want a million cloves in each piece of my ham when I'm eating it. So I don't put it in there. For me, it's always about eating and the flavor rather than just the way it looks. That's secondary. Of course, you eat with your eyes, you want it to look beautiful, but I think it needs to be sensible. For me, biting into a clove, it's not pleasant. So it's not something that I would do. But look, you do you. You pick what you like and do it that way. There's so many different ways of glazing a ham, so many different recipes. But as you can see, that just comes off really easily and you're left with a ham. Now, the first thing that you want to do is you want to score into the flesh here, just above the hock, a sort of zigzag pattern. And you'll understand why in a minute. But this is the first thing you do, and it just makes life really easy when you go to actually remove the skin layer off of this ham, because we don't eat this top layer. This top layer is going to come off, and then the glaze is going to go on top of that once we've made it. But you just basically making like a king's crown sort of imprint into the hock, as you can see. And there we go. So now what you're going to start with doing, and it may pay, if it is a bit too moist, give it a good wipe with some paper towel, just so it's easy for you to work with and you're not slipping, your hands aren't slipping. The last thing you want to do is hurt yourself, especially with that bit there where I went with the knife. I think a little paring knife like this is great. Anything a little bit too big, you could physically injure yourself. You don't want to use a chef's knife for that. So now this is what I'm doing. You just take your finger tip and you're going underneath. And that's why this little sort of zigzag is great as a guide, because this is where you start to slip your finger in and then you can just take the skin right off. How easy is that? And you just sort of pop it underneath and you take it off. It is really, really easy. Can you hear that? So that's just coming off super, super easy. And I think a lot of people, the first time they bring their hams home, they're sort of puzzled. Where do you start? What do you do? But this is just exposing the fat, the beautiful fat that's going to get all crisp and glisten once we put the ham glaze. And you want to be careful not to take too much. As you can see, I've pulled off perhaps a little bit of extra fat there that I could have left on, which is flavor. So just be careful, mindful as you're slipping your finger underneath. You don't want to take too much of the flesh. And what I tend to do is, again, now here, take your knife. So make it manageable. Don't try and take the whole thing off in one lot, because then you tend to pull off too much of the meat and the fat and things like that. You want to try and keep it as intact, as neat, so you have a really nice presentation side when you go and do it. But I'm going to go and get on with this, and then I'll come back and show it to you when it's actually all complete. So time to make the glaze. So you want sort of a smallish saucepan. Get that ready. I've got about 1.5 tablespoons of tightly packed brown sugar that goes in there. I'm going to put in, and you'll have all the measurements on my blog with regards to the recipe. So orange marmalade's in there. The next thing is the Dijon mustard. So pop the Dijon mustard in there. And then finally, the freshly pressed orange juice. And like I said, if you don't want to use or can't be bothered using the freshly orange. So the glaze is coming up to the boil, as you can see. You just want to be careful that it's not going to boil over at this stage. But you do want to let it thicken. So just careful of that, because that can make a big royal mess. But you really do want it to get, I guess, syrupy, and then you're ready to glaze. So the glaze has come together. What I suggest that you do is bring it up to the boil, turn it down, and then let it simmer for about 8 to 10 minutes so it thickens up really nicely. Then let it cool for maybe about 4 to 5 minutes, because then you won't see it thicken until it actually cools, if that makes sense. But now, without further ado, you grab in the glaze, just spoon it over, not too much at a time, and then grab a brush to just paint it on. As it cools, it's going to harden onto the ham. So the trick is, I guess, not to have too much drop down to the bottom, because you want it to do its job and glaze in. So if you can even get someone to help you, one of you pour, one of you glaze, you're not going to waste too much of that. But I'm going to give it a good even coating. Then I'm going to pop into the oven for probably about 20 minutes on quite a high heat. Let it set a little bit, bring it back out, give it a second glaze, turn down the heat, cook it a little further, give it a third glaze. And really, then you probably won't have any more glaze to keep going. But if you do, do it another time. The more glaze is just going to build up this beautiful crust and this beautiful flavor that when you cut in, you get these gorgeous layers that just have that little rim of sweet, sticky orange mustard sort of flavor on it, which is just going to be beautiful. So the ham's been glazed. I actually picked it up and glazed the bottom side as well and then placed it back down. This is really important. You can do this before you do the glaze. It's totally up to you. You want a bit of foil that you've sort of folded into 3/4. Grab the bottom bit and just wrap that and cover it. And really what that's going to do is just to make sure that it doesn't burn that bottom hock bit. So just have that covered. Now I've got a little bit of the sauce that's fallen in there. Do not stress, that's going to add more flavor again to your liquid that's going to go in here. So I've got cloves, I've got the star anise that I put in earlier, just a little bit of water that I'm going to pour in. Now pour this in quite generously. I'd say go about 1/4 of your roasting pan full. And what this is going to do is as your oven starts getting hot, it's just going to help to infuse all these beautiful flavors. And the other thing that it's going to do is when you cook fatty meat, it's going to drip. And when the dripping happens and it settles on your pan, you're going to get smoke in the oven. So it can set off your alarms. It can just cause a lot of chaos and you don't want that to happen. So the easiest way when I do a roast, if it's on a trivet, I like to bang a little bit of water in there and it makes a world of difference and you just don't need to stress out. So now this baby is ready to go into the oven. This is totally optional. I absolutely love the orange and this is going to sort of get nice and roasted. You know what? Scratch that. I'm going to put this in after the second basting because that way I can baste it again and then put it in. So that's when I would suggest you to put that in. I jumped the gun on that. So we'll put this one in and we'll have a look at it in a bit. Hi guys, look at that. I've got my beautiful ham platter that, to be honest, I couldn't find it and I panicked because I didn't use it obviously since last Christmas. But look at this beautiful glaze, a few little charred bits that give it that gorgeous flavor, the oranges that I put on probably in the last glaze, just a little bit of extra glaze on top. It looks magnificent. This, I've just reduced the pan juices and just warmed that up and it really pairs beautifully because it's got all of that porky sort of juice and fat that dripped into the bottom, and I just drained it, strained it, and that's ready to go. But this is going to be beautiful tonight. I recommend using an electric carver. If you've got one, it just makes easy work, especially if you've got a big group around and everyone's looking at it. You know, it just gets really consistent thin pieces. If not, just use a regular knife, and you want to have prongs as well just to help make the whole job easier. Make sure you get your knives sharpened and it's going to be a breeze. Merry Christmas, you guys. I hope you try this recipe. Make sure you go to www.arecipieblog.com. Cheers.